What's going on, guys? I'm here and it's super hot and I'm gonna get sweaty and there's a fan behind me and I don't care. I'm not one of those YouTubers that cares about the fan noise. Anyway, so today what I'm gonna talk to you about is YouTube analytics, at least what little bit that I understand about it so that I know what kind of videos to be sharing with you guys, or at least some of the videos that I want to share with you guys. There's those other ones that I just do whatever I want. But for the person that mentioned something in one of the comments saying, I don't know anything about analytics, I'm gonna go ahead and demystify it for you just a tiny bit, and then we'll talk about it. Let's go! What's going on, everybody? My name is Dave Connery. I'm an artist designer based in Southern California, and it is hot. And before anybody asks, no, I'm nowhere near the fires. They're not too far away, but they're not real close that I'm in any kind of ever threat. My love and support goes out to the people who are dealing with that, but we're not gonna be on fire here today. Anyway, so let's talk about YouTube analytics. Why do we care about YouTube analytics? I know this sounds pretty obvious, and sometimes talking about analytics can be super dry. Not really fun, not very interesting. I'm gonna do my best to make it at least a tiny bit interesting for you, with the caveat of saying, like, listen, whatever we talk about, there's always going to be another side to this story. I will explain in a minute, but not before I say, hey, do me a favor. If you like what I do, if you want to be appreciative of the things that I'm sharing, do me a favor, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Make sure you hit that bell button because you never want to miss a thing, and then share it with all of your homies. Thank you. Gotta air out the pits. It is super steamy here in the fishbowl today. You didn't need to know that, but I was gonna share it anyway. Okay, into the screen. Let's go. Okay, here we are in the dashboard. Do not look at the revenue numbers. You're not supposed to see that stuff. At least I don't think you're supposed to see that stuff. So this is the general dashboard. Folks, what we need to do here is just go straight into the analytics. This is obviously, you've probably seen this. You know what all this is. You go through this and you try to figure out, oh, well, there's some information here. I mean, I know what my watch time is. I know what my subscribers are. I know what kind of revenue I've got, which you're not supposed to see. I don't know. We really don't care so much about that. We do care about that, but what we really want is this right here. We want to hit that see more. This is essential for understanding what type of content we're supposed to be creating for the people that are watching our channel, or at least what kind of content people are seeking out so that maybe we can adapt. So click and see more, and then boom, it jumps right up there. And as you can see, there is definitely well more. There is a whole lot more. There's a whole bunch of different tabs here, and we'll get into a few of these. We're not going to talk about every single one of them because not every single one of them are essential to what we're talking about right now. You can see the video views on all the different videos, my most trending videos, and why I like Infinity Photo more than Photoshop is why most of you probably showed up here in the first place. That is still my #1 trending video, followed by Printful and Printify. Information about that. That one I want to make note of here for our purposes, because when we get into some deeper stuff here, you'll notice that that topic isn't quite as relevant, even though that image or that video is really popular. What we really want to do is we want to go through some of these other things. Now, traffic source is really kind of the key one, but I'm going to skip that one because I want to leave that one for last. What you want to do is go through these tabs and kind of just get a general idea of, like, okay, first off, who am I catering to? Where are the locations? And you can even click into the United States and figure out what are your closest states. So maybe if you're doing regional oriented content, you definitely gonna wanna be looking at this stuff. You definitely gonna wanna be looking at your age, like should you be catering your stuff to? Mine is pretty consistent, pretty much all throughout all of my platforms. I am basically between 25 and 55 for the majority of my audience. Sure, there's some that are lower and definitely some beyond that, but right now 25 to 55 is my zone. And really, honestly, I'm actually a little shocked that here on YouTube it's 20. Well, I guess on YouTube it makes sense that it's here. But in other places, usually this metric, the 35 to 45, 44, whatever, is really where I zone in. Like, that's where I get most of my viewers. This is not surprising. What is different and surprising is that most of my people are male and only a small percentage are female. It's usually actually complete opposite. I'm just too much of a handsome ladies man, I guess, because I don't know, in every other platform it's like all the ladies are hanging out with me. Come hang out with me because that's where the ladies are at. I digress. Subscription status, that's for people who have subscribed to me versus not subscribed. And this is interesting because a lot of my views come from not subscribing people. I'm doing my best as I talk to you guys, I'm trying to do my best to make sure you do subscribe. So many of you come from outside of the subscription area. This is interesting because it kind of gives me an idea of like where people are coming from. The watch page, my particular YouTube channel, the search and whatnot. This is interesting that most people that have found me through any kind of subscription source or have become a subscriber with me have done it through the watch page. That's really intriguing to me. I don't know how to necessarily capitalize on that, but I think that's really interesting that that's what happens. I'm not worried about playlists. You can go there, but let's just look at it. I have my different playlists, and certain playlists are obviously to me, because of other analytics that we'll get into in a second, why certain playlists are doing better than others. Affinity Publisher is definitely on the up. I just did an Affinity Publisher video last week, so that makes sense. You can go over here into these more, and there's all these different ones that you can get into that you can look at. And I really like to sometimes I look at end screen elements and card types and what all these, just because I want to see like how did somebody find me? Where did they come from? Which ones did they use to get here or leave? For our purposes, what we really truly want, so that we have a better understanding of who is watching our videos, why are they watching our videos, or what kind of content we might be looking to improve upon. We want to go to traffic source. Now, YouTube search is the big one. That's what we're going to get into in a second. But first, suggested videos. That is basically when somebody's watching another video and then your video gets suggested in the sidebar, maybe in the like next videos or whatever. Browse feature is just like people are browsing, through different areas. Like maybe they did a search or maybe they're browsing through categories of different things and they found me. External is like somebody shared it external and then they found me that way. My playlists, my end screens, and my video cards and annotations. All of these are important. I do like to go into here to just kind of get an idea of where people are coming from, how they found me because of that stuff. So I do that, but really YouTube search is the one. And when I click YouTube search, I find that, no surprise, Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher, Affinity Photo versus Photoshop, Printify, Affinity Photo Review are basically the top 5. And of course, Affinity Photo is actually the top one because, again, that is my #1 video. We keep going down: Affinity versus Photoshop, Photoshop versus Affinity Photo. These are search terms that people have put into the YouTube search bar, by the way. So Printful, Printful versus Printify, Affinity Designer, Printful versus Printify, or Printify versus Printful, Affinity versus Adobe, InDesign versus beginners, InDesign paragraph styles. I did a bunch of InDesign stuff before I made the jump back over to Affinity. It's basically the same stuff over and over and over. There's nothing in here in this list that kind of deviates from that, except for maybe this one here, which is art toys. And I've done a couple of videos of me painting vinyl toys. A couple of things like that, but for the most part, I mean, GoDaddy versus Shopify, that's an interesting one. That's actually one I'm going to add to my list of, hey, let's look at this closer. I don't get a whole lot of Shopify. I don't do a bunch of Shopify videos. Probably should do more Shopify videos. Maybe what I'll do is I'll do a more specific Shopify video that revolves around Shopify itself, maybe versus GoDaddy, like in their services, in their e-com, or maybe WooCommerce, or maybe one of these other platforms. That's something to put on the list. But obviously the majority of the people that come here have come to me versus the Affinity stuff, or more specifically the print-on-demand companies like Printful and Printify. That's how you find out what people want to know. When I get deeper in here, like these other ones, I mean, they kind of like, as I do that, I can do these tutorials, I can do these reviews of these different places, and maybe that'll generate some new traffic, but I never know, because obviously the majority of the people are still coming to me versus the Affinity stuff. So it's blatant to see that there's a lot of information to be had here. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of this information is it's not going to necessarily excel you, like, oh, I didn't even think about how that, I wouldn't even have ever considered that. Maybe that GoDaddy versus Shopify one I wouldn't have ever considered. But it's definitely, most of this stuff is like, I got it. I know I know all of that. This all makes perfect sense. And that, my friends, brings up 2 very important points that I want to talk about. So we're going to close the computer now because we don't need that anymore, but what we need to do is to consider these 2 things. And the 2 things that we need to consider in regards to that information that we just pulled out of there is, number 1, we need to be able to look beyond the box. And we need to say, okay, what deviations can I make from that content that feel good to me, that feel right to me, that might have some sort of new interest for me, or maybe have some secondary or tertiary interest so that people will go from what they want to know about Affinity Photo to the reasons they want to know about Affinity Photo. Why do they want to know about Affinity Publisher? Do they want to learn how to make zines, which is something I touched on last week? Do they want to learn how to make brochures or calendars? Do they want to learn how to do more photographic work? Like, do they want to work in Camera Raw? Or do they want to do brochures and stuff, or like postcards or poster design inside Affinity Photo? Of course, Affinity Designer was also in there, and it's not something I have actually spoken about too much, except as a byproduct of some of the other stuff I've talked about. What do people want to create in Affinity Designer? One person did ask me a question the other day about like what programs to use for different things, or where should I be building certain things in? Like, where should I build postcards versus brochures? Where should I build magazines? Where should I build logos? Those are all good questions, especially for noob designers. Nothing wrong with being a noob designer. I was a noob designer. Everybody's been a noob designer at one point. You don't do design, then you're obviously still a noob designer, or not even a noob. Point being that there's secondary information that we have to extrapolate. The stuff that YouTube just told me there only gives me so much information. I have to kind of use the big brain on Dave to figure out what it is that they really want. There's that old idea that when people go to the Home Depot or the Lowe's or whatever hardware store to go buy a drill, it's not a drill they actually want. They don't want a drill, they want a hole. They need a hole for some reason, so they go buy the drill to make the hole. What I was just given there by YouTube is the drill. These people are out there looking for the drill. What is the hole that they are trying to make? What is it that they are trying to create? That's what I have to process in my head. Long story short, basically just saying you need to be able to think outside of the box that they just put you in order to figure out what you should be making next. There's actually two reasons for that, and that's because number one, you're going to be able to better serve somebody who's looking for something very specific and niche. Like a t-shirt designer isn't going to be looking for the same video that a magazine designer is. Maybe, maybe not. It could happen, but they're probably looking for different things, and maybe you just want to do both. The other side of that is that it helps you invigorate what it is that you want to do. Like, so you don't have to say, oh, I have to do another Affinity video. I got to do another 10 things that why I like Affinity better than Photoshop. I already did that video. I'm not going to do that video again. So what can I make that's going to serve the people, understands what they really want, makes them happy, and also satisfies my need to be creative? Now jumping back to the original idea, that the second idea beyond the scope of YouTube analytics is that at a certain point, you got to make the videos you want to make. I put the call to action to people out there before saying, hey, what kind of stuff you want to hear about? And a few people said things like, one guy said, I could watch you sitting on the bank of a river fishing and talking about art and stuff, and that would be totally cool with me too. Not a big fisherman, so that's probably not going to happen, but it gives me this concept of like, hey, you know, it's not just about the things that I talk about that are relative to the people who come here. It's about keeping people here, and sometimes it's those other wildly crazy, philosophical, ranty, absolutely nothing to do with design, maybe they're all art, whatever. Those videos are the ones that keep people here. Even though they may not necessarily get as many views as the other stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean I shouldn't make them. Just because YouTube gave you the box doesn't mean you have to stay in the box. You can make whatever video you want. You have to also understand that maybe it will disassociate you from some of the people who have found you, lose subscribers all the time because I'm not making the exact video they want me to make. Doesn't matter, I'm still gonna make what I'm gonna make. Use the analytics to your advantage, but don't be hindered by them. Don't let it become a chain around your ankle. Don't let it be the thing that says, oh, I got to do this, because you don't. You can do whatever you want. It just so happens that I want to make people happy, so I make some videos that people like to see sometimes. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got some value out of that. I hope you go and use those analytics to your advantage, and then go be superstars in whatever realm that you want to be superstars in here on YouTube. Another friend asked about Shopify analytics and how to view those, and maybe we'll talk about that next week or the week after that or sometime after that. Starting the full first week of September, we're going back to 2 videos a week because I want to see if my stats analytics mean anything. All that stuff that I just learned in August about my views and how many videos I made, I want to see what that means. Going back to 2 videos a week, and we'll see what happens. Then we'll make another assessment at the end of September to see if what worked best. 2 videos, 1 video. 2 videos, 1 video. More on that in the future. Now, my immediate future requires an ice cold drink and some watermelon or something. It's so hot. Thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate you. Do me a favor. Comment below what you have found in your analytics and how you are thinking about it in new ways. What are you thinking outside of that box? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're headed down there, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you hit that bell over there. Make sure you hit the bell because you never want to miss a thing, and then share this video with all of your homies. That's it, I'm out. Remember, be good today, be better tomorrow. See ya.